Hi, welcome everybody back to the Travel Collective. And we have another episode here. And this time we're going to talk about what you do to feel safe when you travel alone. So whether that's, changing what you do or where you go or and how you feel about doing that. Are you comfortable traveling by yourself? So let's just start. I'm going to go around the room with our guest here and we'll ask the question of, do you travel alone or have you traveled alone? So I'll start with you, Yetunde, if you want to introduce yourself and answer that question.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Yetunde, and I am the owner of a culinary tour company called Let's Eat the World, and we offer tours in France and Spain at the moment. And I was saying earlier that I had to search back in my mind and think, when was the last time that I traveled alone? Because most of my traveling I do now with my husband or my 8-year-old. And it came to me and I thought, yes, I have done a few trips where I was by myself or I was meant to be meeting somebody along the way. So yes, travel alone, I can talk about that a bit.
Okay, great. And April, how about your travel alone time?
Yeah, sure. My name's April. I'm with the Travel Collective and I fall photo trips, but I'm not super comfortable, honestly, traveling alone for extended periods of time. I just enjoy sharing the experience with others. I will spend a day or so on my own at the beginning or end of a trip, or I have met, like my father, we're flying from different places in the United States. So then I am alone for that first, during the flight to get somewhere internationally and in the meetup city. So I do think about there's a lot that goes into me thinking about doing that and being alone and ultimately knowing if for some reason our connection doesn't meet up or, that I could be alone even longer than maybe the first day as such once I land. So
yeah. And I'm sure April knows, but I've done a ton of solo travel. I started doing it, I want to say 2008 was my first solo trip, I was pretty old. I was in my 40s the first time I really took a trip by myself. I mean, I traveled with work and I have 2 kids, so I traveled alone with my children. So that also, I really think it counts. And actually, that's the thing that I put together when I was planning my trip. I was like, I don't know why I'm afraid to travel alone. I've taken these 2 little people and we've traveled all over together. That's even more scary than just me, the only responsible for myself. So it was just part of what held me back from doing it was less of a safety thing, more of a cultural thing. It's like you're supposed to go on vacation with people. But honestly, once I started doing it, I love traveling alone. I would prefer to go by myself. My mom will go, I want to go. I'm like, yeah, I would rather go by myself. As much as I love spending time with her, I just honestly don't feel I, really learn about the culture unless I go alone, because the trip becomes about that person and less about the place that I'm visiting. But safety was a concern. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we consider or think about and how we handle that about feeling safe. So Yetunde, do you have concerns about your safety when you travel alone? And what are some of those thoughts that come into your mind and how do you handle that?
I don't know. I guess, I wouldn't say that I'm definitely not a naive person. I know that there are safety issues out there, and especially it seems like it's gotten more intense in some places or in some regards than it was, or maybe it's just my mind has changed. Or, I remember traveling around as a young adult. One of the thing is, I had not intended to travel by myself, but my friends took way too long and the tickets started getting too expensive. And I realized I couldn't count on these people anymore. So I was like, I just have to go. And so I just, I bought a train ticket. I got on the train. I went off. I stayed at a youth hostel. And for all of those things were so new to me. And I was a little bit, I found in the daytime, I had no issues. I just, in my mind, it was never an issue. It was more in the evenings that I would start to go, oh, well, maybe I don't want to be by myself out there. I'm a young woman traveling and so on. What I think has changed a lot now, though, is the internet, which makes it a lot easier for people to travel alone, especially women to travel alone. There's a lot of groups out there, like Girls Gone International, expat groups that you can go into before you're going. So, and obviously let people know where you are. That's the craziest part when I hear these stories about nobody knowing where she went off to. And I'm like, What were you thinking?
How and why? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've traveled also with my son by myself to meet distant family that I hadn't seen since I was quite young, and I was a bit worried. Obviously, handling him, he was a toddler, the luggage, getting there, not losing him somehow in the crowd. So yeah, I did think about all those things, and I just had to. I guess I have to have. I don't know. I tap into my trust of the universe,
Yes.
and I go, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of this person who believes in like final destination. I said, well, if it was meant to go today, it was going to happen anyway. So
That's one way to look at it. So April, what are some of the concerns you have, and how do you handle that when you're on your own?
If I'm on my own, I kind of really think through like if what my destination is and navigating that end destination, whether it's the airport, how I'm going, where I'm going to stay, and how I'm going to get to that place. Oftentimes it helps to stay in a more local destination, because then you can actually get on the phone or even have a lengthy email exchange if it's international and say, I might be arriving separate. Do you have a car to pick us up, or what do you recommend is the best way? I mean, I've literally had people say, oh, it's easy to use the train, and they'll write down exactly, but go out here, go down, if it's at the airport, you need to go down here and get on this train, you go purchase the ticket. I love YouTube, because if you're unfamiliar with an airport, I know before I went international, I just like brought up a video and someone's showing you how to walk through that particular airport to get to an area where,
Yep.
My father is going to possibly get off his plane, or even the meeting spot, or if, worst case, after several hours or for some reason he doesn't make the connection, where to get on the train and how to get to my lodging. So I really look at, I think that helps me feel more confident, because then I feel empowered, like, okay, I know how to do this. And I think then physically you just get off the plane, you wear that confidence. Because you're not scattered, because you're not like, oh, I'm not really sure. You're not wandering through the airport alone with your bag. Unfortunately, I'm not a very large person. So just, when you're size wise, I think you think about these things. If I know where I'm going and I'm walking with confidence, even if someone's, even when you're alone walking through, say, a city and someone's trying to get your attention, I'll just, hey, I'm going this way. You're not distracting me. I don't care what it is, because it's not something I'm interested in. If I want to shop in a shop, I'll walk myself in there, but don't try to sell me a bag.
Yeah.
See, that's super, super important what you just said. And I used to own a vacation rental company years ago. And that was one of the things that I would always say to people when I think I wrote a blog about it at some point. I said, you have to act like you know what you're doing, even when you don't.
Yes.
So for example, when I have taken the wrong direction, I got my phone, I'm going the wrong way, and Google's going that way, I play it off. I'm like, oh my God, I just forgot that. I got to go back and get my bag.
Right.
I'll just, do not look completely confused. Right. Obviously, you should also, you have to balance it out, because you should also ask for help if you need it.
Yes.
Don't just wander about in some place endlessly, not knowing. But you have to be, you have to own the place.
Yes.
Own your space. This is my space. I'm familiar with it. Walk with confidence. Don't look like you're lost, confused, and or that you're terrified.
Yes.
No.
And even when you are terrified, it's okay to be terrified.
Right.
Just pretend you're not until you get back in the room and close the door, and then go, oh, thank God, that'll like,
right, exactly. And then
that's totally fine. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that makes a huge difference on what will happen to you, because if you do some research on what those scams and crimes and things that are happening traditionally to tourists, a lot of that happens to people who are bewildered by their environment, and they look a little confused because you make yourself a target, and by behaving that way. So even it's not about not feeling that way, because you will feel how you feel. It's a matter of trying to avoid showing that to the whole world, like sharing that with them. Now I do some solo travel coaching, and one of the things that I suggest to people to do if they've never traveled alone is to travel locally a little bit. And when I say that, I mean, if you've never taken public transportation in your own hometown, but you're planning to take the train when you get to Europe, then go take a train. Take it right in your own hometown. I promise you there's not that much difference. The language will be a little different, but how trains operate and, you know, it's all very similar. And every little thing that you do, like watching a YouTube video on how somebody walks through the airport, it gives you another layer of confidence because, oh, I've seen this sign before. I know this is familiar. So all the familiarity that you have just changes and enhances your confidence. You obviously can't travel, you know, to Spain and get on the train before you go on your trip. But if you take a local train and then watch a couple of videos and maybe check a few, like when I'm gonna, if I have to drive in another country, I go online and look up road signs. Like, what are these roads? Because a lot of them are symbols and, you know, they don't make sense to me. I have no idea what the symbol means. I'll look up a few and just kind of familiarize it. You're not going to study it. You're not going to know it all, but it will make you more familiar. And those things really increase your confidence. And I think to be safe, confidence is really important. Very important to kind of exude that when you're wandering around. You mentioned nighttime, April, and I'm going to bring that up. Something that I do when I travel alone about feeling confident to travel at night is I will go to the destination during the day. So if I know I want to go to a restaurant or even to a bar or to a concert or something, and it's going to be dark when I go there, I will often walk or drive that route when it's daylight, so that when it's nighttime, I know what to expect. I know kind of what it's supposed to look like. Obviously, places change when the sun goes down. Different things are happening in that environment. But if I know where the turns are, it builds my confidence, is what it does. So it helps me feel more comfortable to walk that route or drive that route or park in the parking lot. Like I can kind of scope it out. My kids and I call it doing a dry run. We do that on almost anything. If they have to start a new school, they start a new job or whatever, it's like, go do a dry run. Like you get in the car and drive around and find where you're going to park. And it builds the confidence for when you have to do it either in a hurry or in the dark.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things too is that I thought of while we're talking, I said, you know, you should ask yourself, what would I tell a stranger who was visiting my hometown? You know, what would I say to them? Like what kind of advice I would give to them when they were going to use the public transportation here or to get around in these other places, so that I don't know, I think it would sort of help you think about the do's and the don'ts. Because I know there's a lot of younger people who see themselves as invincible, and you know, and so some person walked up to you and said, hey, come to my house. I've got more rugs here, much better than you see at the market. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to go with you. No, you know, would you do that in your hometown?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
and
you'd
you know,
probably like,
too all the time, Yetunde. So I'm glad you brought that up, which is other humans live in these communities and they navigate and they raise their children and they do things. So there is a way to be safe here, and it's probably not that different than your own community. So the same things when I go out to a bar or, you know, in the evening where people are having, you know, partaking in alcohol and maybe it's loud. I have concerns even in my own neighborhood about that, right? As a woman and, you know, just where I'm at. So it's the same thing in a different country. It's really not that different. You apply all the same rules that you would apply in another country. Yeah.
Research is very important too. I mean, know where you're going. You might be going to a place that's more conservative than where you are from, or more liberal. You know, for example, I watched some series on I don't know what it was called. I think it was called Sex Around the World. It wasn't about sex itself. It was just about like relationships between men and women and so on around in different countries. And it was so striking just to see just how culturally different it is. Like, for example, in Sweden, it's not unusual that it's a woman who's going to solicit the guy. In fact, that's kind of more expected, apparently. I'm not getting this wrong if any Swedes are watching what I'm saying here, but and you know, it's like she'll go to the bar and she said, hey, you want to go home with me? And so to know the customs will
Yeah.
also make you feel more comfortable about where you are. So, because I think that a lot of us are afraid of making mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake. I'm gonna stay in my comfort zone because I don't want to go out there. So just, you know, read, do some
Yeah.
reading, do some research,
Watch
Google, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Google is an amazing, powerful tool.
Yes.
And just the confidence building of trying to do that. So you can feel safe almost everywhere in the world because, as I said, other people are raising their families in these places. They're living their lives in those communities, and you just have to figure out how are they navigating that and follow in their footsteps and asking locals. I mean, ask a local where to go. I mean, you know, you and I've talked about that, like going into the hotel and just saying, I'm looking at going down here tonight for dinner. And they'll go, oh, no, don't walk down there. That's
Right.
tonight's not a good night. Or, you know, after dark, that neighborhood changes dramatically. So just, you know, communicating that is and asking people about what's happening.
And if you're staying alone in a location, I know sometimes like I like to go out and photograph or something, and I just go down to the front desk and ask, just say, you know, I want to go photograph the waterfront, or I would like to do X, and chat with someone, because oftentimes they'll say like, oh no, I wouldn't go here. I would go, yes, you can go down there and get some great pictures, but same, just like you were saying, take this street, it's a little
Right.
longer. Or hey, there's a train that you can just go pick up the train, or they'll help you find another way to do it. And then also just letting them know, just say, hey, you know what, I am leaving the hotel right now, and if I'm not back, you know, here's my cell phone number, or come check on me. Or I've even like booked the wrong reservation by picking the wrong date, and the other night someone called and said, hey, you didn't show up, is everything okay? And I was like, what do you mean I didn't show up? And it's like I'd inadvertently, the computer had popped up a date, I'd booked the wrong date, but they were checking on me. So I was like, wow, you know what? I really like that you took the time. How can we, A, fix this, but B, I like that you realized I didn't check in, and where am I and what may have happened to me. So thank you, you know?
Yeah.
So again, picking a smaller place that would actually do that, I think is
Mhm.
important.
Yeah. And even
And speaking to other people who've traveled to that other solo travelers who've gone to the destination,
yeah.
it's very useful.
Yeah, find out their tips. And Yetunde, you had mentioned like telling people where you're going. I mean, I tell my family, they get an itinerary, and I do check in with them periodically, and I let them know how often they should expect to hear from me. And so they know where to find me. It would be unheard of for somebody to say, oh, she's in this country, we don't know where she's staying. That will never happen. Someone in my family actually has probably the confirmation number and when I'm leaving, and you know, all of that information, and hopefully it's heard from me in the last 24 to 48 hours so that they know I'm still okay. Those kinds of things help as well. So I think we covered it.
Wow, I
Went
think
off. There's
so.
so many
Yeah.
things. Anybody has any questions, right?
Right. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the comments on the video. If you have ideas for topics that you want to see covered, we'd love to hear from you. And travel with us through real people with real stories. We try to do this often, and check out the Travel Collective. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you today.